these are questions for which, with all our knowledge, we have no sure answers.
What do you think?
Episode 194, Zodiac Killer Case, the Timex Wristwatch.
This episode is going to cover the wristwatch found at the crime scene. And it's just going to be very brief. And this watch you see spinning around is not the wristwatch. Here is a photograph of the watch found by Sherry Jo Bates's body. And I believe above the watch is a leaf. If it's not a leaf, somebody tell me what that is. But it looks like a leaf. That looks like the dirt driveway between the two houses. And I'm going to put up another photograph soon. At the bottom, the band of the wristwatch is kind of folded underneath, and so it's a little bit longer. And reportedly, it has white specks of paint on it. I don't see any specks of paint anywhere. Okay, here's another photograph of that wristwatch, I believe at the police station. And you can see that the time is different on the watch. And so maybe that's because it was working still. And you can see how the band is longer. That's how I can tell the band is longer on the part that broke off from the watch. And what I can tell also is that it's worn. It looks like it's 5 or 10 years old, the wristband at least. And so, if it was obtained through an armed forces exchange, and it's 6 years old, let's say, that would be 1960 when the wristwatch was purchased. And that would be prior to the Vietnam War and after the Korean War. And if it's older, then it would be during the Korean War. And so that would put the assailant born around 1930 if he was a veteran of the Korean War. Okay, now I'm going to read a minute or two from this article, changing a few words, skipping some parts, and adding detail. And if you want to read the article yourself, you can just pause the video. And I'm going to include the whole article so you can see it, because it's very good. Sherry Jo Bates was face down in the wildly trampled dirt of the roadway that led between two weather-beaten frame houses to a student parking lot in the rear. The girl's throat had been slashed from ear to ear, and she had been stabbed in the chest and back. Her bright blonde hair was matted with blood and dirt. The victim of the savage attack was clad in faded red capri pants, a long-sleeved pale yellow blouse with a ribbon tied at the throat. Her feet were encased in white sandals. A large red and tan woven straw bag was half covered by the body. The driveway adjacent to 3680 Terracina Street was so turned up it looked like a tractor had been over the ground, a detective later said. The girl, who was very athletic, put up a terrific struggle. Upon finding the body, the groundskeeper notified his superior, who phoned the police. Cross and his detective surveyed the murder scene. A man's wristwatch with a broken band was found about 10 feet from the body of the girl. The girl apparently tore the watch from her killer's wrist before she died, a detective said. A purse under the body contained papers identifying the victim as Sherry Jo Bates, a first-year student at the college. It listed her address. A check of recent police reports revealed that a relative of the girl, her father, had reported her missing when she had not returned home the previous night. The relative was contacted by the coroner at his home before he left for his job at Norco. That's the Corona Naval Base in Norco. At the murder scene, drops of dried blood leading from the body to Terracina Street indicated to the detectives that their murderer had walked back to the street following the slaying. It looks like the girl either walked up the road with her murderer or he followed her up there, a detective said. Roland Wilson, chief trial deputy for the district attorney's office, was notified of the finding of the body in the roadway between 3680 and 3692 Terracina Street. The watch was described as a Timex with stainless steel white face, no serial numbers, and a broken black leather band. It was determined that the watch had been sold in an armed forces PX at an overseas military base. According to this article, the library books were checked out that night, that the key was in the ignition of her VW Bug, and the windows were rolled down. I'm not sure if both. And I think the door was open, the driver's side door was open. So that doesn't make any sense to me, because I would have took my key, rolled up the windows, and locked the doors if I was going to get a lift home. So it sounds like assailant put a knife to her and forced her down the road. So here's what I got. The suspect is possibly a Korean War veteran or sometime after the Korean War in the 50s, late 50s. He's not that large. He's not a big guy. If he's the Zodiac Killer, he's probably wears glasses. And I'm going to be looking at RCC in the late 1950s, early 60s, if he attended that school, and look in the phone books, the city directories, for somebody that matches that description. Well, this ends this episode of Unsolved, and that's it for this weekend, and I'll see you on Friday with the John Bonet case.